Hello dear friends, welcome back to High Point again. In this video we are going to look at a heroic drama by John Dryden, and I hope some of us must have learned this play in our MA classes. I have learned this play in my MA classes. If you have watched Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, the video that we have done, then you can understand this story in a better way. But Dryden didn't simply copy down the plot of Shakespeare's play Antony and Cleopatra, but he actually added some more characters and some more action, and he made it as a heroic drama or heroic tragedy. About heroic tragedy, one of the prominent literary trends of the Restoration Age we have done in the introductory session itself. Then if you have missed the video, then you can watch that in the you can see that in the playlist of the Restoration Age. The link is there in the I button. You can have it if you missed any of the videos. And also don't forget to visit my website, because there you will find 11 topics under which we have divided the entire syllabus, NTA, UGC, NET, JRF, English Language and Literature Paper 2 syllabus for you. Everything you need to cover for your NTA, UGC, NET, JRF, English Language and Literature Paper 2 preparation you will find there, and you can have the entire PDF materials, audio lectures and the previous and practice question papers, along with free bonuses of personalized study guidelines and weekly test going on every Saturdays. After subscribing the course, you will get the course with 15% of off going on nowadays. If you are interested, let me know. Okay, and yeah, also follow me on Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you wanted to have contents related to English literature. Okay, and if you have any doubts regarding the course, study materials or anything related to the course, then you can use this WhatsApp number or use the Instagram platform to reach out to me. Okay, now moving on about Dryden's All for Love. So All for Love has another title. What is that? The World Well Lost, and it is written in 1677 and published in 1678. Do remember this, because sometimes questions are asked you to arrange the works in chronological order. Okay, for that this will help you. This information about the publication year will help you. Okay, also do remember the alternative title for this particular drama, All for Love. What is that? The World Well Lost. Then it included in the genre drama, tragedy, heroic tragedy specifically, and setting is ancient Egypt. Do remember it. The setting of All for Love is ancient Egypt. What is the climax? Antony and Cleopatra commit suicide, thus inaugurating the beginning of the Roman Empire and the end of Roman Republic. So this climax of this play is important. This is a historic Roman play. So many Roman historic characters will be there, along with the other fictional characters that Dryden creates. In the play, in the last scene of the play, Antony and Cleopatra both commits suicide. When he heard that Cleopatra committed suicide, he could not stand, and he committed suicide. But Cleopatra said to him, she committed suicide just in order to make him jealous, in order to make him come back to her. That's all. She never expected that Antony will commit suicide. So by seeing that Cleopatra and all of her chambermaid together committed suicide, so this end of this love couple's life actually inaugurated the beginning of Roman Empire and end of Roman Republic. So before that, Roman Republic was there, not Roman Empire, but Roman Empire began with that. The antagonist of the play is Octavius. Okay, antagonist of the play is Octavius. We have celebrity actors. The character list of All for Love features a list of actors who played the roles of original 1677 production. So when it was actually played in 1677, we can see that the then celebrity actors played major roles in the play. This included Charles Hart as Mark Antony. So Mark Antony was played by Charles Hart, and Elizabeth Buttel as Cleopatra. Both were well known in the Restoration period. So why I included this point is that in a previous video I have seen a question asking about the actual actor played particular character's role in the play while it was actually playing during the particular age. So that's why I included this. Not that much important, but it's an information you can read. If you remember this, then you can secure a mark. And which was the first historical moment of celebrity actors who had mass name recognition among the population. So while this play was enacted, the notion of celebrity actors, this was the first moment in history of celebrity actors who had mass name recognition among the population. Then revivals. The play was very popular and revised twice. So it was not that the play as it is preserved now, but it was so popular and it was revised twice at Lincoln's Inn Field in February 1704 and at Drury Lane in December 1718. So in these two times we can see Antony and Cleopatra, All for Love by Dryden got revised. So I have not included the point that Dryden got inspired and took some extent the plot of Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra. That is understood. I have already mentioned it. Now let's see a quick plot summary. All for Love begins with John Dryden's dedication of the play to an aristocratic patron, Thomas Osborne. This play begins when Dryden dedicates the entire play to an aristocratic patron known as Thomas Osborne. He praises Osborne for his loyalty to the crown and during the English Civil War. So he was Osborne was loyal to English throne while the Civil War was happening. So in the just before period, which was the period that comes before the Restoration Age, it is the Puritan age, and monarchy restored in Restoration Age. That's how it got its name, right? So while Civil War was happening, Osborne was so loyal to the crown. This praise leads Dryden to larger consideration of the merits of the English constitutional monarchy, which he calls the best form of government in the world. So he says that, he says about the merits of English monarchy, and he calls it as the best form of government in the world. Dryden thinks that all attempts at reform are dangerous, since any rebellion strikes at the root of power, which is obedience. Dryden then writes a preface about the play itself. So this play has a preface. Do remember that it has a preface. The story of Antony and Cleopatra has been oft told, most famously by William Shakespeare, but Dryden has made some changes. So Antony and Cleopatra, this story of the lovers, it is so popular, and the well-known William Shakespeare has already written a play about it. It is an often told play. But Dryden, he simply did not copy down the play by William Shakespeare, but he made some changes. For instances, he invented new characters. Okay, so he invented new characters, and also fictional meeting between Cleopatra and Octavia. So Antony's Roman wife is Octavia. Okay, so if you wanted to know more what is happening, the background history, then you can refer to the video in which we have already in detail taken about William Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra. Okay, in there I have sufficiently explained the background history, what is happening. So Mark Antony is already married to Octavia. Okay, Octavia is Octavius Caesar's sister. So contradiction arises, and that his infidelity, his relation with Cleopatra made Mark Antony and Octavius Caesar rivals, and what happens, wars happening, and Antony finally loses. He explains that Antony and Cleopatra are appealing protagonists because they are neither wholly good nor evil. So Dryden says that why these two people are so appealing as protagonists, because they are neither wholly good We cannot say that they are noble, they are holy, saintly kind of people, but they are not evil as well. So they are human. Mixture of these two things are there in Antony and Cleopatra. That's why they are the most desirable, appealing protagonist. So the play begins. Two priests of the temple of Isis, Seraphim and Myris, observe that there has been several frightening omens in Egypt recently. So two priests are discussing. Who are they? Seraphim and Myris. What they are saying? They observe that several omens, bad omens are happening in Egypt recently. See, this is happening in Egypt. Okay, do remember that. For instance, the water of the Nile overflowed and left behind monstrous sea creatures. So the overflowing Nile is common to them. It's not an unusual sight. But after this flood over, what happened? It left behind monstrous sea creatures. They expressed their fear for the future of their kingdom, since Antony and Cleopatra have recently and disastrously lost the Battle of Actium to Antony's rival of the power in Rome, Octavius. So in Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, we can see this battle too. But here, when Dryden's All for Love begins, Battle of Actium already finished, already happened, and Antony lost against Octavius Caesar. So that's what these two priests, they were discussing, and Antony has now locked himself away, hoping to cure himself of his love for Cleopatra. So it's like he has a disease of love for Cleopatra. Like he is so obsessed with Cleopatra, and he was locked himself away from Cleopatra. His old general Ventidius. So remember this character. His old generals means Antony's old general Ventidius arrives to try to bring some hope. He tells Antony that he has an army in Lower Syria that is loyal to Antony's cause. So Antony is no more interested in participating in any kind of battles, because he wanted to be with Cleopatra and enjoy his life, be in that love, enjoy Cleopatra's presence and all. And Cleopatra also in turn wants him to be with her. That's it. So his general and other soldiers. So Antony's general Ventidius arrives, and he tries to instill some hopes. He tells Antony what he said to Antony, that he said that he has an army, and he has an army in Lower Syria. That army is so loyal to Antony's cause. So whatever Antony says, they'll obey. However, the army will only fight for Antony if he comes to them. They do not want to fight for Cleopatra in Egypt. Antony is so obsessed with Cleopatra, and he is with Cleopatra in Egypt, leaving his wife and children. And this army in Lower Syria, this army will only fight for Antony if he comes to them, and do not want to fight for Cleopatra. They don't want to fight for the cause of Antony, which is named after Cleopatra, for Egypt, but they want to fight along with Antony's cause only. Okay, in order to claim his army, then Antony will have to leave her. So now Antony has no choice, so he has to leave Cleopatra. Now what happens? Cleopatra is in despair when she hears that Antony plans to leave her. So Cleopatra doesn't want that Antony put anything beyond her, anything more, give any importance more than herself. So Antony should be always brimmed with Cleopatra, thought that's what Cleopatra wants. So this greediness that Cleopatra had, or jealousy or love maybe to some extent, acted as a kind of poison, or acted as a kind of cause for both of these people's death, that we will see later. And she is so in despair when he heard that Antony has the plan to leave her. She sends her eunuch Alexas, so this is her servant, like her servant, who gives Antony a ruby bracelet in the shape of bleeding hearts. So she sends her eunuch Alexas to Antony, and Antony was given by a ruby bracelet by Cleopatra. Why did he give that? Because she wanted to make Antony more into her. Like whenever he sees this ruby bracelet of in the shape of bleeding heart, then he will remember Cleopatra. Cleopatra's heart is melting for him. Alexis petitions Antony to go see Cleopatra one last time so that she can fasten the bracelet on his wrist. Although Ventidius warned against this. So what happens after seeing this? After given this gift to him, Alexis wanted Antony to go and see Cleopatra for the last time before leaving the place, so that she can tie this bracelet on his wrist. But Ventidius warned him, because he knew that once he sees Cleopatra, he'll change his heart, and Cleopatra some or other way will change Antony's heart. When Cleopatra appears for her audience with Antony, she swoons and protests pathetically that she only wants to die. So Cleopatra knows that he's gonna leave her, so she wanted to make him or persuade him to be with her. So what she does, she swoons and she protests pathetically that she wants to die because Antony is going to leave her, and she also feels that maybe he will return to his wife, and she has mixed kind of thoughts, so she doesn't want Antony to leave her. So what happens? She swoons and she makes some dramatic protest. At this, Antony proclaims that he will never abandon the woman who loves him, even if it cost him his life. So he fell into her trap. This poor drama played by Cleopatra. Antony claims and proclaims that he is not going to leave her, abandon the woman who loves him so much, and even if it cost him his own life, he is not going to leave her. Several other visitors come to the Egyptian court. Antony's old friend Dolabella. So Dolabella is Antony's old friend who is in love with Cleopatra. So Dolabella has a crush on Cleopatra and Antony's wife Octavia. So these people came to Egyptian court to visit Antony and to persuade him to go back to Rome and go back to his own side. But Octavia has also brought their two daughters Agrippina and Antonia. So in order to persuade Antony, what Octavia did, Octavia is Antony's wife, so she also brought their two daughters Agrippina and Antonia. Octavia tells Antony that she is still loyal to him as a wife despite his abandonment of her. So Octavia tells that she said that even if you abandoned me for this woman Cleopatra, I remained so loyal to you as a wife. I have never abandoned you, just like you abandoned me. Ventidius and Dolabella urged Antony to abandon Cleopatra and take back Octavia. So Ventidius, Dolabella, everybody persuaded him to abandon Cleopatra and take back Octavia, because they know that it will only bring anger from whom? Octavia Caesar, and that will finally lead to the doom of the Roman Republic. So that they don't want. Octavia tells her daughters to go to their father. At their embrace, Antony is so moved that he tells Octavia that he will leave Cleopatra. So when he saw his daughters and when he got an embrace from his daughters, he was so moved, and this moved him to tell Octavia that he is going to leave Cleopatra soon. Now, Cleopatra again despairs at this news. So Cleopatra is not at all happy with this news. She encounters Octavia in the palace and the two women exchange insults. Octavia accuses Cleopatra of stealing Antony's wife, children, power and political standing. So these two women, Cleopatra and Octavia, they met in the palace, and Octavia accuses Cleopatra of stealing Antony's wife, children, power, political standing, everything. Finally, this love that these two people has, it is going to bring their doom, nothing else. Cleopatra says that she has suffered more because Octavia has the name of life to protect her, whereas Cleopatra has lost her own crown and reputation for for Antony. Meanwhile, Antony asked Dolabella to break the news of his departure to Cleopatra. What happens when Octavia accuses Cleopatra that you have stolen my husband, the right of the children, power, political standing, everything for him, everything from him. Now in return, Cleopatra says that simply because you have this title of wife, I have suffered more, because I lost my crown, I lost my reputation as a woman for Antony. So while this was happening, meanwhile, Antony asked Dolabella to break the news of his departure to Cleopatra. Now Antony decided that Antony is going to leave Cleopatra. When Dolabella arrives, Alexis urges Cleopatra to use Dolabella's feelings for her to make Antony jealous. Cleopatra begins flirting with Dolabella. So what happens? Everybody is well aware that Dolabella has a crush, has a likeness and an eye upon Cleopatra. So Alexis says that Alexis urged Cleopatra, said that you can flirt with Dolabella, you can have a fake flirt with Dolabella in order to make Antony jealous. So after hearing that, she felt that this is a good idea to make Antony to stay back with her. So Cleopatra begins flirting with Dolabella. Ultimately, Cleopatra is unable to go through with it and confesses that she is still in love with Antony. So she could not carry out this flirting with Dolabella anymore after a certain period. Then after a certain time, so she again confesses that she is still in love with Antony, and she cannot make him persuade in this way by making a flirt with Dolabella, so that maybe ultimately she will lose Antony. Okay, Dolabella admires her loyalty and consistency, but it is too late. Ventidius and Octavia observed Dolabella kissing Cleopatra's hand and plan to tell Antony, hoping that this will drive a wedge between the lovers for good. So everything is too late, because Octavia and Ventidius, both these two people, they saw that Dolabella kissing Cleopatra's hand in affection. So they planned to tell this to Antony, and they hoped that this then Antony will have some uncomfortableness. Yes, so that will drive a wedge, a gap between the lovers, and that will result in a goodness. Ventidius and Octavia bring the news of Cleopatra's infidelity to Antony. So like they observed, they straight went to Antony and said, this backfires since Antony becomes frantic with rage and distress. So what happens? Cleopatra expected that Antony will get jealous and finally come back to her. But what happens? He became frantic with rage and distress. Coming to this realization that Antony still loves Cleopatra and will never love her, Octavia leaves the palace and returns to Octavius's camp. So what happens? Even though he was filled with rage and distress, Antony cannot hate Cleopatra. So Octavia observed that and realized that, see, Antony, whatever happens, Antony will be still in love with Cleopatra, and he is not gonna love Octavia just as he loves Cleopatra. So Octavia leaves the palace and he returned to Octavius Caesar's camp. What happens next? Meanwhile, Antony rages at Dolabella and banishes him from Egypt. So Antony was so mad at Dolabella, and Dolabella got banished from Egypt. He banishes Cleopatra as well. So Antony also banishes Cleopatra, who begs his forgiveness and leaves proclaimed that she still loves him. So Antony was so mad at Dolabella as well as Cleopatra. He also banishes Cleopatra, but she begs for his forgiveness, and he also proclaimed that she still loves him. That is true as well. Antony weeps as they part, but orders that they never see each other again. So she got banished from Egypt, and Antony weeps while they two depart, because Antony's heart is bleeding with love for her, but he is so mad at her as well. So he when they depart, Antony swears. Antony gives the order that, they'll never gonna see each other again. The battle with Octavius continues to go disastrously for the Egyptians. So now the battle is going to happen between Antony and Octavius Caesar. So the battle with Octavius is going to be so disastrous for Egyptians, because Antony is going to lose this battle. As Antony watches from the roof of the palace, the Egyptian navy surrenders without a fight and joins the Roman forces. So what happens? They are going to have a navy battle. Octavius Caesar is so popular and so crafty in a navy battle. He got skills that Antony lacks, and Antony's army is not also so trained in participating in a navy battle. So he watched from the roof of the palace that Egyptian navy surrenders even without fighting. They joined the Roman forces. Antony becomes convinced that Cleopatra has betrayed him to Octavius. So when he saw that this Egyptian navy, without even fighting a battle, joined with the Roman forces, he thought that he banished Cleopatra. So Cleopatra persuaded the Egyptian to join Octavius Caesar's navy or army, and through this, he convinced that Cleopatra has betrayed him to Octavius. Alexis comes up with another plot, recommending that Cleopatra hide in her monument, which she does. So Alexis again comes up with another plan that, in order to make Antony to come after her. So he recommended that Cleopatra can go and hide in her monument. It's a temple kind of thing, and she does so. And Alexis tells Antony that Cleopatra was so distressed at his suspicion on her that she killed herself. So it's just a story made by Alexis in order to persuade him to bring back to Cleopatra. So Antony just told him that Cleopatra was so distressed. He was in utter hopelessness after banishing her. So she committed suicide. At this news, all the fight goes out of Antony. So he is in the middle of a battle, and maybe he will win this battle. But when he heard the news of Cleopatra's suicide, then what happens? Every other thought of his battle and all goes out of Antony, and it was filled with the regret, and it was filled with the desire to die along with her. He explains that all he wants is to die, since Cleopatra was the jewel that made his life worth living. So he felt that his life is not worth living after the death of Cleopatra, and he said that all he wants now is to die. All his conquest, glory and honors were merely the ransom he used to buy her love. So whatever glory, conquest and honors that he got in his entire life, it's just a ransom that he used in order to get Cleopatra's love. Okay. So he was in utter grief. Now is the time to give up his power struggle with Octavius and let the world know whom to obey. So I'm just going to give up the power struggle with Octavius. I'm no more interested in this. So let the world know whom to obey. Let the world decide who can rule them. Ventidius accepts Antony's desire to die and expresses his wish to go with him, since his own life is not worth living without Antony. So Ventidius he also felt that, you see, if Antony is going to die, he wishes to die too, because there is no other purpose in his life without Antony. Antony then asks Ventidius to kill him first, but Ventidius stabs himself instead. So Antony wanted to commit suicide. So Antony wanted Ventidius to kill him first, but he refuses to do so, and Ventidius stabs himself instead. Antony then falls on his own sword, but misses his heart and begins bleeding profusely. So what happens? Since Ventidius stabbed himself and died, Antony falls on his own sword. Okay, but the heart position was missed. When he fell upon the sword, the heart missed and he began to bleed profusely. That means he won't have a sudden death. Eventually, after this bleeding, because of this bleeding, he will die eventually. Meanwhile, discovering Alexa's deception, Cleopatra rushes into the room and finds him on the ground. So he bleeding, he slowly moved to Cleopatra, and meanwhile Cleopatra also discovered that discovered the bleeding Antony. As Antony dies in her arms, he makes her promise to join him soon in the afterlife. So Antony died in her arms, and he made Cleopatra to promise that after his death she will join him in the afterlife very soon. So he even made her to promise that you will also commit suicide once I die. Cleopatra dresses herself in her royal robes and sits herself on the throne beside Antony. So Cleopatra dresses herself, her royal robes, and in all her royalty, she sits on the throne of Egypt beside Antony. Her maids Iras and Charmaines bring her a poisoned asps and fatally stings her. It's a too poisonous snake, asp and aspian. So she asked to bring that snake, and she allowed that snake to sting on her breast, and Cleopatra proclaims that she'll die with Antony as his wife in a bond that no Roman laws will be able to break. So she was so distressed always that since both of them were too much in love, but she cannot be his wife. So she said that, see, even though I could not live as a wife, but I can die as Antony's wife, and no Roman law can break that. As she dies, she challenges Octavius to ever separate them now. So Octavius did all these wars for his sister Octavia, and she challenges Cleopatra now challenges that Octavia, however he fight, however he murder and kill people and do everything to separate them, but Cleopatra says that and challenges Octavius that he cannot separate them ever now. Iras and Charmian follow her example and also committed suicide, and Serapion burst into the throne room and leading Alexis in chains. So what happens? Serapion, do you remember the priest? After seeing this, after hearing he burst into the throne room, and what happens? Leading Alexis in chains. When he sees the bodies, he remarks on how noble Antony and Cleopatra look, and expresses the hope that they will live a happier and freer life in heaven than they found on earth. Now, let's see some themes. Honor versus love, we can see here, and continuity versus changes, then passion versus reason, then authority versus freedom. These are some themes. There are more other themes we can find in this play. You can comment that if you know more, and if you wanted to have more detailed summary, you can visit my website as well. Okay. Meet you in the next video session. Until then, stay tuned to High Point. If you have any doubts, queries, questions, don't hesitate to ask them in the comment section, and you can use the WhatsApp number in order to contact me, and also follow me on Instagram. If you liked this video, press the like button and share this video to your needy friends. Okay, meet you in the next video session. Until then, stay tuned to High Point and be happy. Strive for the best. Ta-ta, bye bye.